All right, now, everybody. Quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind, but we're going to have a show.
We are live on this magnificent day. It is the 30th of December, and I'm not a calendar expert. So that's why I have Kim here, because Kim can tell me there's one more day of the month, right, Kim?
Yeah, it's the 30th and the 31st on Tuesday.
Good.
Then we click over, and not only, Mark, are we starting a new month, we're starting a new year, my friend.
Oh, that's right. Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Well, you will be advancing the next calendar round.
Yeah.
We have questions about January coming up. I will tell you that we will be live both today and tomorrow. We're off on New Year's Day, but then we are back on January 2nd. And there are some special guests already planned for January 2nd. But let me not get too far ahead of myself. Today, we have special guests for you on the news that Jimmy Carter has passed at 100. I mean, a remarkable life he led as a president and as a private citizen. John Rothman will be with us in just a few minutes. He's the presidential historian. And Spencer Christian, who knew Jimmy Carter personally, he will join us. So there's much to do. That is just in the first half hour. I know it's pretty incredible, because in the second half hour, Anthony Davis is going to be joining us. So it's yes, I know. Thank you. Thank you for recognizing the importance, the work, the heavy lifting that's gone into just the first hour. Sadly, we spent no time preparing the second hour, which is going to be a little bit of a reach. But I do want to talk about what's happening in MAGA world. There is a brawl that involves the higher-ups in MAGA. I'm talking about Bannon. I'm talking about Musk, Trump. But more to the point, I think, this is a revealing moment for all of you MAGA folk who somehow believed the populist BS that was the Trump story. You know, that I'm here for you, I'm fighting for you, all of that. I mean, I told you it was BS. I told you he's a con man. But, and I think most of this audience knows that. But that said, right away, he's not even president, and you're seeing the evidence. I mean, the bald-face evidence that it was all a con, and he's going to take care of the billionaire moneyed class, always. He'll take care of himself, and he'll take care of that class, and F the rest of you. That's basically where he is. Kim has changed her location. She looks like one of those old commercials from the 70s where they said, "We've taken this housewife's regular coffee and substituted it with Folgers coffee. Let's see if she notices." You know, where they bring the kids in and the husband in and they pour the Folgers.
My dad has this little cottage, and it's this one room they've built, but it's a pretty big room, and it's got a bed and a little kitchen behind me and a restroom and a washer dryer. So it's like a nice little cottage, great place to stay when we come visit in Oregon.
There's the Folgers commercial. And look, it doesn't look so different than the little cottage you're staying in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Except in this case, we've replaced it with Coachella Valley coffee and tea.
I love it. There you have it.
Thank you very much.
Very, very good. All right. Well, I also have something I want to quickly share with you before I get to
The Mark Thompson Show.
We were off for a few days. Thank you for everybody who wished me a happy birthday and stuff. That was very nice. My birthday was the day after Christmas.
How was your birthday?
It was so low key. It was perfect. I did a lunch at a place called Genghis Cohen, which is a Chinese restaurant, and I did it with the Mankowitzes came. They were sort of my childhood friends who've grown up with, and we it was just really us. And they have Ben Mankiewicz and his wife Lee have a little girl who I adore named Josie. And so that Josie came was, to me, just made my birthday.
Awesome.
And then we had a birthday dinner, but that's it. So, but thank you. We did get a lot of emails and stuff, and I really appreciate it. And before I get into Jimmy Carter, I do want to note 2 emails from people who both, I think, are named Karen. Isn't that right,
Yes,
Kim?
that's true. Mhm.
Okay, now these came with pictures. I don't know which Karen you have up first, but Kim will read the email, and we'll show you the pic.
So yeah, the first one comes from Karen Q, and she writes, "Hi, Mark, Kim, Tony, and team. Thank you all so much for the wonderful meetup before Christmas. It was great. Thanks also for the terrific work you guys do for your fabulous shows all year. That's nice. A happy belated birthday, Mark. Thought of you on the 26th as my dear father's birthday was also that day. He was a fine man. So you have some good day after Christmas karma going. Wishing you many happy returns." Also, she writes, sharing a cool photo of my 2 beautiful daughters with me rocking our Mark Thompson holiday merch shirts. They loved their Christmas gifts. She says, wishing you all a happy new year with peace, love, and joy abounding. And please, God help us after the inauguration. And that's from Karen Q. What a cute
that's really
picture.
cool. And you're right about your daughters. My God, they're adorable. You're all adorable. I love that. Happy why I should have gone for that today. I went with just the Mark Thompson Show T-shirt, but that Happy Non-Denominational Holidays T-shirt looks great. I like the dark one and the green ones.
Yeah, it looks good.
Good stuff. Thank you, Karen, and all the best to you. Thank you, Karen Q. And then one other, I believe.
Yeah, the next one comes from Karen D, and she is
she's from Taiwan. Normally she's watching in Taiwan, but she's clearly
at the
stateside.
Supreme Court today wearing my Mark Thompson t-shirt. And she wrote that a couple of days ago. So there she is showing us the Mark Thompson logo in front of the Supreme Court.
It.
Nice.
That right. That looks like one of those shots that, women had during the women's lib movement, where they raised their shirts up and they ripped their bras off and they tossed them on a big heap. No, I'm sorry, but it does have that look. But in
this case, she's showing the Mark Thompson goods.
I love that you rocked. I love that you rocked our shirt in front of
It looks amazing. Yeah.
The Supreme Court. Good stuff. Thank you, guys. And if you want to have shirts like the coolest people on earth, you can find them all in decorator colors at getmarkmerch.com. The holidays pretty well winding down. We have our happy non-denominational holidays, but the rest of everything is still rocking. There's the chit and all the rest. We'll get more into it a little bit later. All right. Thank you, guys.
The Mark Thompson Show.
The passage of Jimmy Carter is a serious thing, given the fact that we look back on, and it's a reminder, sort of, as we look back on America and where we were and how far we've come. I think the general disposition toward Jimmy Carter was great, honest, in a way, extraordinary man. Presidency was mixed bag. That's probably sort of fair, but it may be a little unfair to Carter, because he did some things that he was really ahead of his time on. And he was a transformational president after, particularly in the shadow of Nixon and Ford. Remember, he came out of that when the country was really wanting an honest broker as president, someone who really seemed to speak with a sense of allegiance to honesty, to sincerity. He was those things, and he was also a brilliant guy. We've got a quick package on him, and then we're going to talk to Rothman and Spencer. I hope we're not keeping them too long. But here's a quick wrap package just to remind you of who Jimmy Carter was as president.
My name is Jimmy Carter, and I'm running for president.
He was the longest living former president in U.S. history who redefined the post-presidency with his dedication to faith and public service. Outside of his native Georgia, Jimmy Carter was a virtually unknown politician when he ran for president in 1976. He grew up in the small town of Plains on a farm with no electricity or indoor plumbing. Carter attended the U.S. Naval Academy, studied nuclear physics, and worked in the nuclear submarine program. But his father's death brought him back home, where he ran the family peanut farm. In 1962, Carter entered the world of politics, serving 2 terms in the Georgia State Senate.
Jimmy Carter.
Before becoming governor. In the Old South, he was something new.
The time for racial discrimination is over.
But beyond Georgia, many still did not know who Carter was. He even stumped the panelists during an appearance on What's My Line in 1973. Just a year later, he announced he was running for president, a fresh voice stepping onto the national stage in the wake of Watergate and other scandals. The political outsider and born-again Christian was viewed by many as a welcome change. Carter narrowly defeated President Gerald Ford in the general election, becoming the first president from the Deep South in nearly a century. From the very start, Jimmy Carter signaled his would be a down-to-earth presidency, walking the entire way from the Capitol to the White House during his inauguration, and swapping a suit for a sweater as he discussed the energy crisis.
There's no way that I or anyone else in the government can solve our energy problems if you are not willing to help.
Once in the White House, however, Carter's lack of experience in Washington politics became a severe handicap. Congress blocked some of the key legislative initiatives he prioritized, but Carter found more success with matters of foreign policy, emerging as a champion of human rights.
No member of the United Nations can claim that mistreatment of its citizens is solely its own business.
The Camp David Accords, a major achievement of his presidency. Carter led marathon talks between Egypt's Anwar Sadat and Israel's Menachem Begin, brokering a historic peace treaty that is still in place today. A Soviet invasion of Afghanistan prompted Carter to boycott the Moscow Olympics. Then there was Iran, where dozens of Americans were taken hostage, the crisis consuming his final year in office.
Any encouraging news from Iran, Mr. President? No.
A mission to rescue the hostages ended in tragedy.
It was my decision to attempt the rescue operation. The responsibility is fully my own.
At home, when the economy tanked, so did Carter's popularity. Long lines at the pump became a familiar sight with widespread gas shortages.
The erosion of our confidence in the future.
Carter blamed the country's troubles on a crisis of confidence.
I'm a candidate.
His political weakness brought a challenge from Senator Ted Kennedy for the Democratic nomination in 1980, a race Carter won, only to face an even more formidable opponent, Ronald Reagan.
I'll bring new hope to America.
Jimmy Carter lost his bid for re-election in a landslide, but he never lost faith in himself or in his principles. Carter's love story was one for the ages. He married Rosalind Smith in 1946. The girl he knew throughout his childhood became not only his closest friend, but his most trusted advisor.
The best thing I ever did was marrying Rosalind. That's the pinnacle of my life.
They went on to have 4 children and more than 20 grandchildren and great-grandchildren. After leaving the White House, the Carters dedicated themselves to public service.
We made some very careful plans over a period of time, and now I would say that this is the best time of our life.
In 1982, they established the Carter Center, committed to advancing human rights and promoting democracy around the world. And in 2002, at age 78, Carter became only the 3rd American president to be awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. His work for Habitat for Humanity spanned decades, and both Carters continued their work well into their 90s, celebrating milestone birthdays and anniversaries. In November 2023, Carter said goodbye to Rosalind, his wife of 77 years, the longest presidential marriage in history. Nearly a year later in October, the former president was seen by the public for what would be the last time, celebrating his 100th birthday, punctuated with a Navy flyby. Carter died Sunday at his home in Georgia, surrounded by family. His son Chip saying, "My father was a hero, not only to me, but to everyone who believes in peace, human rights, and unselfish love." A leader who worked to serve not only his country, but the world.
I've had a wonderful life. I've had thousands of friends, and I've had an exciting and adventurous and gratifying existence.
Such an earnest and sincere guy, and remarkable. All right, now I wanted to bring 2 people on. One who's a presidential historian, that's John Rothman, and the other who knew Jimmy Carter personally, and that's Spencer Christian. Welcome, guys. Appreciate you both being here. John, I'll start with you just because I feel as though Carter gets a little bit of a bad shake on his presidency. He did a lot. He doubled the national park system, first national legislation funding green energy. He was clearly way ahead of his time on that. Major civil service and government ethics reforms. I just made a list of them here. Created FEMA, the Middle East Peace Accord, some of that stuff that was just noted there. I think it's eclipsed by the mess of the economy, by the hostage crisis, and of course the gas crisis, of course. Could you speak to a little bit how you square all of that and the Carter presidency?
First of all, I'm honored to be here with Spencer because he really knew the Carters, and the Carters called him a friend. And Spencer, I'm delighted to call you a friend as well.
Yeah, thank you, sir. I feel the same way.
Let me tell you, Jimmy Carter was not a great president, but he did great things. We remember him for not only the Camp David Accord, but the peace treaty between Israel and Egypt, which remains in place. We remember him for the Panama Canal. And interestingly enough, that's now a major issue in American politics. And yet it was Jimmy Carter who forced that decision to be made. And by the way, it was one vote, Senator Dennis DeConcini of Arizona, who put it across the finish line.
When you say it, I just want to be clear to everybody. You're talking about the fact that the Panama Canal, Carter made sure it went to Panama. Is that what you're saying?
Well, that was the only option.
Right, but I'm
either
just saying
we kept it or it went to Panama.
Right.
And you will recall, and most people don't remember this, that when the formal transfer took place, no one in the Clinton administration wanted the honor of going down there to have the transfer. The man who they sent was Jimmy Carter. And that was really quite a tribute to him. And of course, his environmental work was absolutely phenomenal. The amount of open space that he saved, the Alaska that he created, if you will, by preserving open spaces. There are so many things that he did well. His problem, I think, was he was a micromanager. You know, he used to assign who could play on the White House tennis court. I think it was a downfall. And of course, there are many who will argue that when Iran and the situation with the Shah rolled around, it was Jimmy Carter who made the decision to pull the rug out from underneath the Shah. He believed, I believe sincerely, that he could get an orderly transition in Iran, and what we ended up with was the Ayatollah Khomeini. But you will remember something, that when Ronald Reagan won that decisive victory, when the inauguration was passed and the hostages were released, who did Ronald Reagan send to Germany to greet the hostages? None other than Jimmy Carter. And there's another interesting story, and I know we have limited time, but when Anwar Sadat was killed, President Reagan assigned 3 former presidents, Nixon, Ford, and Carter, to go to the funeral. Bob Dole joked, evil, hear no evil, see no evil, and evil, which everyone laughed about. But the fun thing was that Ford and Carter became friends after being political opponents. And they made a deal that whoever died first, that one who survived would give the eulogy at the funeral. And Jimmy Carter gave perhaps one of the most eloquent eulogies for Gerald Ford when he died. There's no doubt that Jimmy Carter was a controversial president. There is no doubt that there is much to criticize. I was asked this morning to do just that, and I said, you know, he just died. Let's give it a breath. One last point before we move on to Spencer, and that is in rating of the presidents. Jimmy Carter emerges about halfway in the pack. He's neither great nor a failure. He was sort of an average president. But I think that the most important single testimony to Jimmy Carter is that he was an exceptional former president. Okay, some of his successors objected to his interfering, but Jimmy Carter was a sincere, dedicated man who lived his faith. And I think that's the essence. You remember his autobiography, Why Not the Best? By the way, you know the first time I ever heard about that book? I visit used bookstores. I'm compulsive about it. But there was no used bookstore in this little town in Colorado. There was a Christian bookstore. 1975, I walk into the Christian bookstore, and you know what they're featuring? Why Not the Best by Jimmy Carter.
Oh, is that
published
right?
by
That's
an
wild.
evangelical press.
Yeah.
And Jimmy Carter harnessed people. Interesting to note, Jerry Falwell endorsed him in 1976, but endorsed Reagan in 1980. And
Isn't
that's
that
another
wild?
juxtaposition. How will he be remembered by history? I think he will be remembered as a man of deep faith, a man who tried hard to achieve peace, and a man who made it a point when he left the presidency with Habitat for Humanity, the Carter Center and its work on elections and the whole question of honesty in elections. I think he'll be remembered favorably, and indeed he should be. And we'll leave the criticisms of the Carter administration to others, at least on this day.
Well, certainly his post-presidential life was remarkable. I mean, unparalleled in terms of what he was giving back to the community. There's Trevor Starr saying, whether you think Jimmy Carter was a good president or not, I hope we can all agree that he was by far the greatest former president ever. He didn't play golf. He built houses for poor people. Yeah, that's a major reducto on what he did, because he also wrote books. He weighed in on the Middle East. He really... he was a thinker, and he continued to try to influence policy after his presidency was over. Spencer, you are so lucky to have interacted with him in so many different settings as a personal friend.
Yeah, so fortunate. Yeah, and I keep pinching myself. Have I really lived this life that I got to know this wonderful, incredible human being? Not just Jimmy Carter, but Rosalind as well. The two Carters. They both dedicated their lives post-presidency to serving God through serving humankind. And as John pointed out, they went into the most impoverished nations in the world to work to eradicate diseases, to vaccinate children, to improve the quality of life for the poorest people on the planet, and of course, building houses for Habitat for Humanity. He is, as you said, one of you said earlier, he's a man who lived his faith for sure.
Yeah, and his interaction with you, I think, started on Good Morning America, but then it continued past that. In other words, you guys sparked to each other, I guess, there.
Spencer, tell the story of your relationship with Carter. It's marvelous. Really a great story.
Okay, well, it was 1988. The Democratic National Convention was going on in Atlanta, and Good Morning America went down for a week of live coverage. And the first day of the convention, I was sent to the Carter Presidential Library in Atlanta to interview former President Jimmy Carter. You may recall in those days, he was an avid runner. He ran miles and miles every day. So I'm out early in the morning setting up with the camera person to interview the former president. And we can see him out there jogging around the grounds of the library with the Secret Service guy. And he comes running up to me, panting and sweating. And he says, "Hi, Spencer, I'm Jimmy Carter. Nice to meet you." And I'm thinking, this man needs no introduction. And then the next words out of his mouth were, "We want you to know how much the Carter family appreciates how kind you were to Billy when you interviewed him years ago." I had interviewed Billy Carter, the naughty Carter family guy. I interviewed Billy Carter in the brother. I interviewed him in 1980 when everyone else who had interviewed him was trying to make him look like a buffoon or a redneck. And I didn't want to try to rob the man of his humanity. So I let him reveal who he was without my having to show people who they wanted to see that he might be. Anyhow, so Jimmy Carter says to me, "The Carter family really appreciates your kindness and how gracious you were to Billy." And that, right away, we just had a personal connection. So my next encounter was doing a live remote for GMA from the site of a Habitat for Humanity build about a year or two later down in DC. And I stayed after the broadcast and just hung out with the Carters, got to know them, worked with them. I hammered enough nails to say that I participated in building the house. But what's most memorable for me about spending that day with them was just watching them interact with each other and with other people. I'm sure you've heard a lot about how deeply in love Jimmy and Rosalind Carter were. They were. I mean, they are always holding hands as they're walking together. They gazed lovingly into each other's eyes. And that's how they were on every occasion that I saw them over the next 30 years. Unbelievable.
Yeah, really something. You're right. That personal
Spencer, I got to just ask. Yeah. Tell them about the event that they asked you to MC.
Oh, all right. So in 1999, by this time I had several encounters with the Carters. I was invited to MC his 75th birthday celebration in Americus, Georgia. A formal affair, about 1,000 people attending, all in black tie, dignitaries and diplomats, and Senator Max Cleland was there, and ABC's Sam Donaldson was there, and I'm emceeing this thing, right? Wow. So, and then 20 years later, I was invited back to MC his 95th. Actually, it was a joint celebration of his 95th and Mrs. Carter's 92nd. But I think the story John wants me to tell is this. There was a break when one of the performers was setting up backstage in 1999 when I was emceeing that big event. And I was asked to fill about 9 or 10 minutes while this group was setting up some musical instruments. So I had pretty much run out of Carter stories to tell at that point. But I remembered, a little bit about my interaction with Billy. And you two may recall, and I'm sure your audience members, some of them, recall that when Jimmy Carter first ran for president in 1976, he did a Playboy interview and he talked about his faith, and he
said in his heart.
He had committed lust in his heart, right? Then everyone made jokes about the fact that he had committed lust in his heart. So as I'm filling this 9-minute gap, I talked about having met Billy Carter, and I talked about how I felt before I met Jimmy Carter and how I felt a connection with Billy. I said, we really had a lot in common. I said, Billy liked drinking beer, and when I was a younger man, I drank a little beer. Billy worked at a gas station, and when I was in college, I worked at a gas station. And Billy and I both had brothers who committed lust in their hearts. So there was a momentary silence in the crowd. Everybody was looking to see how the Carters would react when they saw both Jimmy and Rosalind laughing. Then there was uproarious laughter that went on for about 5 minutes.
Oh, that's terrific. That really, you took a chance with that line. That's so marvelous.
Took a big chance. Yeah.
Oh, that's just true. Well, I mean, the quality of the man, I think, never in doubt. I think in a way, a lot of the political forces in Washington, just to speak frankly, worked against him in large measure. He was, as that package, the video package that we ran indicated, viewed as an outsider. And there is a quality in Washington of, if you're from the outside, you're going to get bitch slapped by Washington. They're very tough that way. It's a closed club. And I feel as though much of his presidency suffered from that. And then, of course, I just want to touch on this from a political standpoint, because it's mentioned here. Carol mentions he started the Departments of Education and of Energy, was undermined by Reagan's undermining during the campaign Carter presidency by making a deal with the Iranians not to release captives till Reagan was inaugurated. That is true, by the way. And I wanted to ask you both, I guess maybe John, because it's a pure political question, if you felt as though there was a little bit of that Washington and GOP hand in creating an environment with the gas crisis and then, of course, with the Iranian hostage crisis ultimately that really kneecapped his presidency toward the end.
Yeah, Carter had a lot of self-inflicted wounds as president, and maybe that's unavoidable when you're president of the United States. But Jimmy Carter was a good man. He was not a great president, and that was his problem. And of course, when Teddy Kennedy announced he was going to run against Jimmy Carter for the nomination, all hell broke loose. And I'd remind you that Kennedy defeated Carter in both the California and New York primaries, which was a major blow to Jimmy Carter.
So you're saying he was politically hobbled already, is what I get from you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Look,
okay.
You remember the great Malays speech in which he never mentioned the word Malays, but it was almost an apology for not being able to succeed. And in politics, a bluff is better than an admission of guilt.
Well,
and I think
we've certainly learned that. I'll tell you this, as a last coda, I remember Dan Rather doing a sit-down interview with him for 60 minutes, and he asked Jimmy Carter, how would you rate your presidency? And Carter, always honest. This speaks to how honest he was, and contemplative and reflective. He thought for a second and he said, I'd say B-, C+, maybe a C.
Yes.
And I thought, oh my God. I mean, no one's going to reelect somebody who, is a C president by his own yardstick, his own appraisal.
Mark, are you better off today than you were 4 years ago?
Well, that was a real tough spot.
Line.
Yeah, that real tough. Because
you may remember Ronald Reagan saying, "There you go again." So there were all sorts of things.
But I mean, I think the gas lines and the Iranian hostage crisis that created as he circled the drain politically, that made it almost impossible to really make a charge. Yeah.
I hate to do this to you guys, but ABC Network News in New York is waiting for me to get on the phone to do a little thing with them.
I love it.
If you don't mind,
bumped by
I mean,
ABC
I love
Network
being on
News.
the,
I love
I
it.
love being on the Mark Thompson show. I do,
Yeah.
but I don't want to stand ABC up.
Yeah. Try to
Go
work our
for it.
name
Wonderful
in.
to
Thank
see you. Happy
Spence.
New Year,
All right.
Spencer.
All right, buddy.
Happy New
Christian,
Year,
everybody.
guys. Okay.
Rothman, I love that you came through as well. I wish you the best. I think we're not going to talk to you this Wednesday because it is New Year's Day, but I look forward to catching you the following Wednesday. And I appreciate the fact that I got a good dose of Rothman today for the week. So thank you. The new, the podcast, not so new anymore because it's been doing about a year, is Around the Political World with John Rothman. Check it out. John, thank you. Appreciate all your reflections. Okay.
See you soon.
John Rothman, everybody. Right on.
The Mark Thompson Show.
I am indeed grateful for all of our patrons. Thank you for that. Yeah. I want to change gears, which is very exciting. You know, I like a gear change.
What?
I know. There's just something about changing gears that gets me jazzed up. While we were away over the weekend, there was a major. God, I look incredibly tired. Look at I have to get, Kim, I need some, FedEx me some makeup or something I can put under these incredible.
Hey, it was a Mark Thompson
bags.
party weekend, so.
There's a button you can
What's the
push for
problem,
your
Tony?
camera. You could push a button for your camera if you want.
There is?
Yeah.
And
you
it'll
go
do
under
what?
settings in camera or doing
Yeah.
this live on the air. It's going to be great. So you go under camera and it says touch up my appearance.
Oh, I didn't know that existed.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Let's see.
And it does
This
like the
is-
Barbara Walters filter. See?
Nice.
touch up my
appearance. Mm-hmm.
Hang on. It's doing
And then
did
start
do
sliding it
anything?
over.
Did it do anything or not?
Oh, yeah. Smooth everything out.
Yeah.
Did it really?
Good. Mm-hmm.
I still look exhausted. Anyway, while we were away, a lot of stuff happened in MAGA world. There was the beginnings of what you're going to see more of, and I think it speaks to the cold slap in the face that those of you who are MAGA supporters, because of the faux populism that you bought into, the con of a populist president, Donald Trump, he's going to fight for you. He's authentic. All that crap. It was crap. He's always going to take care of the moneyed aristocracy. He's always going to take care of the moneyed elite. And look at what's happened over the weekend. And to help unpack all of that, how about it for some guy who I adore, some guy who's only my favorite British boyfriend, and the guy who leads, in my view, he is the man on the Midas Touch Network. How about it for the great Anthony Davis, everyone? Thank you, sir, for your patience and for being here today.
It's my pleasure. I'd say I'm number 6 or 7 on the Midas Touch Network. I wouldn't say I'm
No,
the
you're
number
my
one.
guy. I
Okay,
understand
well, that's
that you're
good.
you're not the guy.
I've just been trying to touch up my appearance on this with the settings because I too have had slightly
I don't
rough. And
see-
I clicked it, and yours has worked, by the way. Oh no, here we go. There we go. Look,
It
I've
does
put it on
a
very
little
strong.
something. It does
Okay.
a little something.
There we go. Look, that's without. That's very subtle, and that's with. This is great. I mean, I'm not a vain person, but I think you've made me one.
Yeah, you really do. You
There
put
you
a.
go. I'm turning it.
I'm loving it. I'm loving it. Anyway, so yeah, I think we both look pretty terrific. If I can, I mean, as a result of electronic alteration.
Oh my God.
Yeah, all right.
At the very
Anthony
least.
Davis, we saw something over the weekend that I think speaks to what we're going to see more of in MAGA world, because there are a lot of competing interests. There are the pure nationalist MAGAs, and then there are those who are riding MAGA to victory, but then are just going to take care of the moneyed class, which is really, I feel as though that's fundamentally the game here. I want to run this a little wrap package. It's short, and then I want to get your thoughts. Go ahead, Tony, please.
Before Christmas, far-right figures like Laura Loomer took aim at some in Trump's circle, especially India-born Sriram Krishnan, Trump's top AI advisor, for suggesting the U.S. remove caps on issuing green cards and H1B visas to high-skilled foreign workers.
First, there was a post, Vivek Ramaswamy on X on Thursday,
quote, a culture that celebrates the prom queen over the math Olympiad champ or the jock over the valedictorian will not produce the best engineers. Elon Musk, who along with Ramaswamy will lead Trump's Department of Government Efficiency, also posted on X that same day, quote, the number of people who are super talented engineers and super motivated in the USA is far too low. The backlash was fast and furious from Trump loyalists who support strict limits on immigration.
American jobs for American citizen workers.
Trump's former White House chief of staff, Steve Bannon, on his War Room podcast on Friday, calling on stalwart Trump supporter Laura Loomer to explain what she sees as the conflict amongst supporters of the president-elect.
Why are these people who have a history of hating President Trump all of a sudden trying to dictate us on our immigration policy and telling us that we're stupid, we're not the best and brightest, we have to import people to do the job in tech?
Musk posting on X late Friday about some Republicans, quote, and those contemptible fools must be removed from the Republican Party root and stem. Silent for now on the issue, President-elect Trump.
Well, he's not so silent anymore. That was when that piece first ran. He was silent, which seemed maybe to be the right play politically. But now he's sided, and this is the part that should come as no surprise if you've been listening to Anthony Davis, you've been listening to me, you've been listening to those of us who say that it is all a fraud, it all is a con, the populist thing. He sides with the Silicon Valley gillionaires who want those people who are coming from generally India, but from elsewhere, to be able to populate their businesses. Anthony Davis, your thoughts?
It's the same story as the abortion argument, isn't it? Where he kind of chops and changes on that one. He'll say one thing to one audience. This is the definition of a populist, in my view, to one audience. So if he's playing to the anti-abortion crowd, he's like, you know, all that stuff. And then the moment he is talking to another group to get their affections and attention and votes, of course, he'll change the story, which is why he went into the election with such a kind of woolly argument over abortion and stance on abortion. This is all about being able to get cheap labor. That's all this is. This is cheap labor for him at his hotels and places, cheap labor for his friends in Silicon Valley. It's about bringing in the best and not having to pay them necessarily the kind of, you know, the going rate, and also having access to some of the brightest and the best around the world, which if they were to do away with H1B, it would cut their noses off to spite their faces. So, you know, it's just follow the money, right? We just follow the money every single time, and you'll come to the answer that you're looking for. And in this case, there is more money to be made, allowing immigrants at senior levels and even mid-levels, as well as low-wage ones picking vegetables, to come in and work in the United States, which goes to show that, as you and me and everybody in this space quite rightly said, everything is an act. Everything is to build hatred and anger and vitriol. We've seen it with Fox News over the last 20 years, where they just, you know, the other is the enemy. Blame them. And, you know, if we can make them seem like the bogeyman, then we will feel better about ourselves.
Oh, that's so true, and it was so effective politically. I do want to make a distinction. The H-1B visa program really applies to the tech people who they will bring in from overseas, largely from India. In fact, there's a cap on the number of H-1B visa eligible people they can bring in. But that's distinctly different from the agricultural workers and those immigrants.
But it's going to be it's going to end up being the same with the agricultural workers. It's going to be the same. The only people they're probably going to go after are people with criminal records or who've been convicted of crimes. Right. Because at the end of the day, the American economy cannot function, as we have both been saying, without immigration at a significant level. So you know, most of it was posturing, most of it was performative, most of it was trying to get people to vote for them, and by creating this, you know, this them and us thing. But at the end of the day, you know, Trump knows nothing about economics. He knows nothing about the way that international trade operates, and he especially this idea of the kind of the net versus the gross. You know, how much, this is why you keep saying things like, we're subsidizing Mexico. Like, none of that makes any sense. America is a superpower. It's the largest or second largest economy in the world, arguably, and it will remain that way, provided they don't shut the border. And really, that's what Trump wants.
And I think Anthony says something so very important, which we have talked about here, which is, remember, I've spoken before about the fact that, and Anthony, I know, has spoken of it as well, these high-profile roundups that they'll do. They'll be heartbreaking, they'll make news, and you'll have the sense that there's this mass deportation going on. But just like the wall, you know, they'll build 7 feet of it, and it'll get all over television. He'll talk about how it's built, but they're not really doing the wall, and they're not really doing the mass deportations, because ultimately the business community is the tail that's wagging the Trump dog, and they will not let him pursue mass deportations and throw the agricultural economy on its side, not to mention all the other economies that are linked, but just use the agricultural economy as an example. And similarly here with the H1B visa caps, they're not going to let him. I mean, they're not going to have a meeting with him. He's going to know. And he'll know in part because Musk makes no question about it. I mean, he goes right on X and says, hey, the best people are the people I'm bringing in. Don't you want America to be populated by the very best people when it comes to technology?
I think it's also worth pointing out that for those of us who have been warning of this performative nature of Trump politics, we are not doing it to kind of own the Republicans or because, you know, we don't want the Republicans to prosper. This is for the country as a whole to prosper, because in fact, I did a very interesting interview, thanks to you, with David K. Johnson on the Weekend Show yesterday. And, you know, we were obviously criticizing the way the U.S. operates. And I read in one comment, Anthony doesn't celebrate America or something like that. And I thought this was very interesting because, and I tried to read all the comments, because to criticize your system is to want it to get better, in the same way that I criticized the UK system when I was working and talking in the UK. And I do think that there has been this kind of idea that unless you are critical of how the system operates and you try to, you know, point things out and it's critique rather than critic, right? That you actually are doing it for the right reasons. And I'm very much of the opinion that this country is potentially the greatest country in the world. I can never quite explain why, but I do believe that it is because I choose to live here. But I also recognize that we need to get better at talking about it and accepting, without American exceptionalism, accepting its flaws and looking where things need to change. And that is not criticism of the country, that is critique because we want it to improve, and we can only do that through this type of discourse.
I was in a taxi last night with a guy who's an immigrant from Afghanistan, and he has 4 kids, and he's been in this country for 10 years, came here when he was in his early 20s. Hang on. And he was saying that we were talking about Afghanistan, we were talking about religion. I asked him, are you deeply religious? I mean, they all speak like 4 languages. So Arab is is not the native language of the Afghanis, but it is the language of faith. Okay, yes. So if you're a Muslim, you know the Arabic as a result of the Quran, etc. And he knows 2 other languages besides that. But anyway, I'm talking to him about all of these different things. And on faith, he said, I came here, and one of the great things about this country is that you guys don't care about what faith anybody is, that the freedom of religion and all the freedoms here are just so terrific. We didn't have any of that, obviously, in Afghanistan, from where I came. And he is deeply religious, okay, as it turns out. He's a deeply religious Muslim, and he can pursue his faith here to whatever degree he wants, and so can his kids. And apart from the religious thing, I just thought, isn't that interesting that the rest of the world sees many of the freedoms we have here as the particularly specific thing that is America, and that is a magical thing.
And completely. However, what is changing is this kind of state warfare, whereas it might become increasingly difficult to practice your Muslim faith in Florida, for example. And I mean, we even had, do you remember that whole argument after 9/11 about having this kind of Muslim faith center near the ground zero, and there was all of that pushback. And, you know, that frustrated me, obviously, because you can't really connect 9/11 to to moderate Muslim faith in any way. And yet that was the rhetoric at the time. So you're always going to have some kind of misunderstanding or disagreement, or as David K. Johnson talked about, which is something I've never been able to vocalize, the fact that people here are so uneducated by nature of the system that does not afford them the kind of rounded education that other nations get. And, you know, I mean, the statistic he came up with, I've never heard before, but he was talking about like half of people reading at a fifth grade level. And I was just thinking, you know, we would prosper so much more if we were all given a kind of education shot in the arm. And I think this when I hear Marjorie Taylor Greene like arguing in Congress earlier in the year. And I was thinking, I think that she's angry with Democrats because she's secretly jealous that they might be smarter than her.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if to a person the Democrats are smarter, but I mean, she's definitely, as long as we're ranking things, fifth grade, sixth grade, whatever the education level, she's really weak. I mean, she's just not a smart person.
But you know, it's great that you don't have to be smart to be in Congress, but the percentage of people that are unable to really communicate, and so many of these hearings that we've had that have been based on like rumors and nothing, there's no critical thinking. I think going into next year, it's really important that everybody tries to kind of raise the bar on the level of political discourse and the depth to which we need to analyze, because you know, it really isn't as simple as the price of eggs is the reason that Donald Trump won the election. It goes far deeper than that.
Of course, that's true. And it's interesting, and I'm going to circle back around to MAGA and how we started this, but it's interesting predicament that Trump has found himself in. And the predicament is this. You've won all of Washington, both houses of Congress. You have the Supreme Court, which is this concierge court for you. It's not clear to me that he will be able to get a lot done if he goes through, I mean, he'll a lot through executive order, of course, but if he, in terms of legislative achievement, if he goes through traditional channels, I don't see how you pass bills through a thin majority in Congress. I mean, you'll need total and complete adherence to whatever you're trying to put through, and when you don't get it, and you won't, so you may as well consider that, when you don't get it, you can't blame the Democrats. They're not in control of the House. So it's now I'm sure somehow, because Trump is so good at this stuff, he'll spin it so it's the Democrats who are undermining us, whatever it may be. But I see Trump as in a little bit of a predicament politically as he begins his administration.
But remember, he's a great propagandist. That is a talent that he has that the Democrats do not possess. And his ability to propagandize is the reason he won the election. And so Democrats need to change their tune in a big way going into the new year. Because, and I've been saying for years now, it seems, I wanted Joe Biden to do a weekly press conference denouncing MAGA lies, where he pulled down a flip chart and he said, this week they said this. Well, that's not true because of this. This week they said this. Well, that's not true because of this, this, and this. And actually create a ministry of disinformation where you are working to re-educate people. And it would be interesting, and maybe Fox News would cover it. Do you see what I mean? I think you just have to play these people at their own game, because my concern is that now we're starting to see an awful lot of Trump's supporters and people who voted Trump, not necessarily Trump supporters, but people who had to vote Republican for historical reasons or whatever, having a great sense of buyer's remorse. And they're hearing about the H1B visa. They're also starting to hear about Elon Musk being the president rather than Donald Trump. And they are saying, well, hang on a second, I didn't vote for this. And that noise is going to get louder and louder and louder. And that's going to be Trump's greatest concern, is that the people that were singing his praises are now going to be asking some quite serious questions of him.
so true. And this is a minuscule issue, and yet it does reveal so much about how the MAGA populist loyalists will be so disappointed by where this guy ends up. So, excuse me, I had to clear my throat. So it seems to me now, to get back to the issue, that the Bannons of the world may end up being disappointed, at least initially, with what Musk and Vivek can push through, at least on this H1B visa thing. Musk and Vivek will win, and Trump has said, that he supports them.
And Bannon hates Musk. Let's not forget that. He hates him with a passion. I'm not convinced that Vivek and Musk are going to stay friends for very long, because I've never seen them together. I've never seen them in the same photograph. I've never seen them as a duo. I've only ever seen them speaking independently. So I think that's going to be kind of interesting as to how that relationship plays out, because of course two massive wealthy egos are not going to, they're not going to volley well. They'll spar, if anything. And also I recognize that Donald Trump already is on the golf course and is happy to delegate and is just like, don't bother me with your problems. I won the election. I managed to avoid prosecution. And so just let me be. And I think that that is the biggest danger here, is that there are plenty of extremists ready to do the work that Trump is too lazy to do.
This is interesting. MTG's a rich suburban Atlanta housewife and a total fraud, says Harold. Of course, there's some truth to that. Also, though, Dragon Marine, excuse me, I don't know why my throat is so shot. Trump doesn't need MAGA anymore. I think that that's really speaking to what you just said, which is, yeah, he doesn't. He's got the presidency. He can skate on his legal issues. And now, you guys work out the details.
Well, because it was a confidence trick. The whole thing was a confidence trick, as we pointed out. And it worked, because confidence tricks do work invariably. But I mean, I also predicted a few weeks ago that he'd stick with the Speaker of the House, which today I've heard that he's endorsing Mike Johnson again. Mike Johnson is a perfect foil for Donald Trump. Well, literally, doesn't have the confidence or the strength or the experience, and is grateful for the job, and therefore will operate as a puppet of Trump, who only knows who is pulling Trump's strings, but ultimately, what people voted for and what they're going to get are two very different things.
It's so right. And the Johnson thing is an interesting deal, because if he doesn't quite get there, it leaves you without a Speaker of the House, and you have no way to actually certify the election. I mean, you need a House. The House cannot convene without the Speaker. So it'll be a very interesting thing. I'm sorry about my throat. I don't know what's happening. No Contendo says, MAGA didn't want a half Indian, but now you have an invasion coming to to take white jobs. The irony is beautiful. Yeah, MAGA, and MAGA as personified by Bannon, indeed did not want that, but they don't want the influx of immigrants. But again, Trump, he appointed Shriram Krishnan as his head of technology, who is Indian and who wants a lifting of the cap of the H1B visas. So the Trump administration, as Anthony's just noted, is going to be far different than what MAGA world was expecting. I commented 2 weeks ago, I didn't see that, something along the lines of white cops with 30 years experience passed over for Kash Patel. Vivek and Elon H1B1 visa drama proves my point. Please talk model citizen versus black dynamic, is that? Or I don't know. Sometimes with No Contendo, I have trouble figuring out the... But
I predict that the Democrats are going to have to bail out the Republicans in a big way at the midterms. I think between now and the midterms, things are going to get so crazy, whereby, if these appointments are ratified in the Senate, and we do get the Kash Patels and these Pam Bondis and everything else, I think that things are going to become so erratic, and even things as simple as, you report a crime and it just doesn't get investigated. I think, I keep thinking of Back to the Future 2, when Biff Tannen kind of gets the mayoralship and you kind of see Marty going around Hill Valley and the place is just devastated. and Strickland, his old teachers on the porch with a gun, and the place is just a mess, cars up on bricks and sirens, and that's kind of the worst case scenario, but that's kind of how I feel, that the effect of having a lawless president and lawlessness in all these institutions, I think that's what the effect will be. And it's not going to be Democrats revolting. I think it's going to be Republicans.
No, as I say, I think that we're into a time where they may not even be able to get. I mean, now you have Mike Johnson being endorsed by Trump, and maybe he'll be able to drag him across the finish line. But you have even that is questioned. And I think there's an inability to get to the finish line on a lot of different issues. And the other thing about H1, I just would love people to know this, is that it's a coveted thing to get one of these visas. It's a really hard thing to get. Much of our audience is in the Bay Area or comes from the Bay Area. We originated there. And so they know that because the tech world is populated by those who have had to work hard to get these visas. But the other thing you should know is that there are agencies dedicated to getting you that visa. And if it's really a cottage industry getting that coveted visa. And if they can get it for you, this is oftentimes the way it works, they then farm you out to these tech bros who want to see this passed. You go work there for $50 an hour, even though it's a $150 an hour job, and they take the 100. That's the way it works. In other words, there's a...
Well, it's human trafficking. What you're describing is human trafficking, right? But it's legal. There's loopholes because there's profit, and that's why I said when you asked me the question initially, follow the money, because there is a huge amount of money being paid for this, and invariably, people who get the H1B, they are connected to an employer in the United States that will pay the cost of the H1B.
Right.
They'll pay the filing fees. They'll pay the legal fees because they want you. But they also know that they are overpaying, invariably, for your talent because you're still below market value.
Isn't that wild? They pay all that money and they still save so much. So that's the state of the MAGA bros and the tech bros, and they're playing out at the highest levels, the Marjorie Taylor Greens, the Steve Bannon, and then, of course, Musk and Vivek, and then, of course, Trump on the side. But as you suggested, Anthony Davis, that's just the beginning. It really is just the beginning.
Have you heard that Elon, it turns out, is as interested in eugenics as Trump is?
Oh, my God.
And I'm now starting to hear all of this stuff about, he's into the purity of whiteness and I mean, man, all of your fears about these people, and we have great human instincts, don't we? You really should trust them because most of the things that you feel are going to turn out to be true.
Yeah, these guys, no good is going to come from it. No good is going to come. But anyway, I love that you joined us. Thank you for jumping on with us here at the end of the year. As you look back on this year, Anthony Davis, what things stand out to you?
My failure to call the election correctly will stand out significantly. I was convinced that it was going to be a win for the Democrats, and I've been eating my words, and I've issued many apologies to my followers and supporters.
Just on that note, though, I think one of the keys to because it's particularly instructive when you look back at Jimmy Carter and also I think what you said, which is that you would have recommended that Joe Biden actually, have a weekly sort of meet up with the nation. As it turns out, just as an aside, I don't think Joe Biden could have had a weekly meetup. I don't think he was together enough.
But it could have been delegated. It could have been somebody in the office could have been doing it, not necessarily.
And that might have been a good way to establish somebody on the political scene, by the way. That could have
You
worked.
just have to tackle things head on. Like it's a bit like having an argument with your partner, right? You can either deal with it in the moment, or you can let it fester for 3 days, not speak, and then have a row about it on the weekend. I mean, it's not the way to deal with things. You have to deal with things as they come and in the moment, and get ahead of it as opposed to fighting fires. And I really do believe that any kind of whoever's going to present themselves as Democratic leadership going forward, we're in a bit of a vacuum at the moment. But I really hope that we will see much more thoughtful and controlled analysis rather than just throwing a load of stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks.
Yeah, I mean, sadly, we have these siloed information houses. I think the one thing the Democrats need to do is, I don't know, you can read these comments as we're talking, everybody. I can't acknowledge all of them. One of them was quite laudatory and loving toward you, Anthony Davis, as I saw, but as we all are. But I think the Democrats have to get hip to messengers. It's not enough to be a great crafting of legislation is something that is not just what the job is. It's communicating the legislation that you've just crafted. It's telling people what you've done. Biden had a lot of stuff he could have taken victory laps on, and he didn't. And as it turns out, I think he didn't because he can't speak well. He can't communicate. So I would encourage the Democrats to look to those in the media ecosphere, not purely in the political ecosphere, like the Jon Stewarts of this world.
Yeah.
People who have a knowledge, but they also have an ability to handle media. They're unflappable. Those are the people who may have to take on the GOP, because the GOP has a structural advantage over the Democrats, and the GOP also, I think, messages better than the Democrats. They elected this guy who is essentially, he's a TV guy. That's all he is. You've talked about it all the time. He says stuff, he propagandizes so well, and then he, goes out on the golf course. You guys handle the details.
He's a clown wearing makeup. I mean, he's literally wearing makeup, and still he got support. And that goes to show that it's not so much about the policies, but it's about the cult and that sense, that feeling that people had that he cared about them, which was, of course, untrue. But I would also like to see, and just in answer to your kind of question about 2024, I would like to see Democratic Congress people and people who work in politics engaging with shows like ours. Because this was a criticism of Kamala Harris about not going on Joe Rogan. You can look to the amount of media, and on, Midas Touch now is leading the digital charts. We need to have politicians on our shows all the time. And as much as I love interviewing academics and experts and commentators, they're still middlemen.
Yes.
And what I need is the actual people to come and engage and reach out to these audiences. And so I really hope that they understand that new media is where people are getting their news, and not legacy media, which doesn't ask the right questions in the first place.
Sure.
And as we saw with the ABC News kind of collapse.
It's weird. I made this point at the time. That she would be at all reluctant to sit down with Joe Rogan is laughable to me, because Joe Rogan, in a 2-hour conversation, it's essentially going to be a cakewalk. Maybe there'll be a couple of questions that you'll already be prepped for, like immigration or whatever it might be. The next time he'll ask, what would you have done differently? Is there anything you've done differently from Biden? You'll be able to handle that. But the rest of the interview is just, it creates a three-dimensional kind of positive vibe of anyone who's a guest on the show.
Who are you? That's all it is. And Trump went on there for 3 hours and talked absolute shit for 3 hours.
Sure, made stuff up,
and there was no pushback, and somehow that fell in his favor. So we need to really talk to the Democrats and have them recognize where it's at now. And I suppose this is part of the problem of having legacy leadership in Schumer and Pelosi, and I have great respect for those people, but they maybe don't understand how people get their news.
I think that's exactly right. And look at what's happened with Chuck Grassley now. Isn't Chuck Grassley going to be beat out AOC?
He's 170 years old.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't get it. In our last second, this from Randy. Geez, it was reported over the weekend or recently that Biden has stated he thinks he could have won the 2020 election and served another term. Yeah, I mean, I saw that as well. It's delusional. It's utterly
He also said he
delusional.
regretted the appointment of Merrick Garland, who slow-walked the investigation into the insurrection. And I was pleased that he said that. I would rather he had done something about that.
Sure.
You know?
I mean, unbelievable. I mean, you could have, we did a whole show on Merrick Garland and what an abomination he continues to be from a professional standpoint. Anthony, you know I love you, and we will talk to you again, but I'm so glad you could come on here and give us the deal. The Midas Touch Network, as you say, it does lead the charts, and your show is your many shows are anything that you're doing, I adore.
Well,
and
likewise.
I love the way you say what you do and do what you do. Thank you for being with us. Happy New Year, my friend.
Happy New Year, Mark. All the
Anthony
best.
Davis, everybody. Right on.
The Mark Thompson Show.
I loved talking to all my pals. Anthony Davis, lead among them. Did Anthony see that there was someone who is totally swept up by Anthony Davis's magic?
I think so. They
There
called
was
him
a-
handsome, and yeah, I saw that.
Yeah. She said she can't, she has to work today, but she is still, this is her guilty pleasure to spend time with Anthony Davis. It was very cool.
It's good that Anthony Davis brings substance along with him, but a lot of ladies, it doesn't really matter what he says. You can just listen to him saying whatever.
It's just the way he says it. I agree with
Exactly.
you. Absolutely right.
Just speak for me, Anthony Davis. That's
Well,
all
the
I
Brits,
need.
the Brits have been getting by on that for ever since
It's
they
the
started
truth.
speaking.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, we're here to civilize all of you. I hope you'll be, everyone will be cooperative. They will have no issues there. Tut, tut, tut. All right. But Anthony is my British boyfriend. Yes, it is the accent, says Shonda. That's correct.
Yeah.
Anything else in the chat that we need to get to before I get to a quick news and commentary, which is what we do here regularly. If you're just joining us, this started as a radio show on KGO Radio, and then which is in the Bay Area, is a big talk radio station, politics, news, this sort of thing. And then the station went away. And now we are the Mark Thompson Show, and we're on YouTube and we're across audio media on various podcast platforms as well. You can go to themarkthompsonshow.com to find out more, and also there's a Patreon and PayPal link. Tomorrow, I will mention a couple of people up there support of us on Patreon, which I really appreciate. We are actually having a rough month from the standpoint of revenue. And that has to do with YouTube. It has nothing to do with our audience. And so for that matter, I really appreciate the way that we can count on our Patreon and PayPal audience. And then all of you who are so generous with super stickers and super chats. And here we go. Lori, who lives above the bar. And isn't that where we all should live? You're goddamn right. I want to live above a bar.
It's
And
the Red
not
Jack
just-
Saloon.
It is the Red Jack Saloon. I love the Red Jack. And if you're in San Francisco, California, go to the Red Jack Saloon, and maybe Lori will be there. They live literally right above the bar. Happy New Year from Daniel D. and Lori. Now, Daniel D., Kim, you'll explain. Daniel D. doesn't live above the bar.
No, he's a patron and friend, I think, of the Red Jack, and friends with Lori, and she helps him facilitate his contributions to the show. So really nice.
I love that. And we got a $27 contribution. Thank you. I truly appreciate it. And as I might have said in my younger days, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Yes. Karen Q, who we just mentioned earlier in the show. Happy New Year. With many thanks, Karen Q.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for a $20 super chat. Wow. Very, very cool. You guys are very generous and always supportive of the show. We, in a reference to Spencer Christian, who, as you know, took my job on Good Morning America. Oh, that's right. 45 won't attend Carter's funeral. I bet you. Yeah, exactly. I
I
saw
don't
that
know
earlier.
if that's true, because one of the things when Trump makes these posts on his Truth Social, and over the weekend or last night, he posted something really actually lovely about former President Carter, to the point where I thought, I don't think Trump really wrote that. But
Tony,
if
can you find that? Find what he wrote. I saw it too, because I didn't quite see it the same way. I saw that he eventually got to something, but he started with something along the lines of Donald Trump is in a, you can take that off of there, 45 won't attend Carter's funeral. Donald Trump, it says, there's an elite group or something like the special group of people who are president of the United States.
Sure.
And you can only understand if you've been president of the United States like I have. I thought, sure, why not ramp up whatever you're going to say with, some flowery, self-flattering crap, which is what Trump did. And then, as Kim noted, then he got into Carter a little bit. But I thought the open was all about him. You didn't notice that? I thought that was what I remembered from it.
I did notice that, and it was a little bit of a turn off. But the point is that he actually said something nice, and that's here it is. I just heard the news about. You want me to read it, or
no? Go ahead and read it. Yeah, go ahead.
I just heard the news, allegedly, writes President Trump, about the passing of President Jimmy Carter. Those of us who've been fortunate to have served as president understand this is a very exclusive club, and only we can relate to the enormous responsibility of leading the greatest nation in history.
Okay, so stop right now, because apart from a glancing mention of Jimmy Carter, this is all just about what an elite group, and it's an exclusive club and enormous responsibility and leaders of the greatest nation in history. Go ahead. Now continue.
Then he says, the challenges Jimmy faced as president came at a pivotal time for our country, and he did everything in his power to improve the lives of all Americans. For that, we all owe him a debt of gratitude. Melania and I are thinking warmly of the Carter family and their loved ones during this difficult time. We urge everyone to keep them in their hearts and prayers.
Okay.
So, I mean, it lacks its typical Trump, shake your hand with one hand and slap you upside the head with the other, right?
Right. I am, I thought it was a fairly generic, but all right, fine. I mean, if you want to give him credit, it's fine. I thought it was laughable. The first paragraph was laughable. You know what I mean? If you started a eulogy that way in a church or a synagogue or whatever, or just in a, memorial service, you'd get laughs. I mean, if you read it, everybody, very few of us can really understand the awesome responsibility of leading the greatest nation on earth. It's a pretty exclusive club, if I could just say that. I mean, come on, man.
No, you're right.
Why can I not find Jimmy Carter's sneakers, Bibles, NFTs, colognes, guitars? Oh, wait, he was about helping others, not selfishly enriching himself. There is that. Yeah. Flo says, Mark, this conversation with Anthony Davis makes me realize we really are in the Twilight Zone. What would Rod Serling say? Yeah, there's a Twilight Zone-ish quality to life in America. So here's a thought for you. I think Biden should resign January 13th. Then Trump would not be 47. All their MAGA stuff wouldn't matter, although then he'd just grip for new hats. Yeah, I wouldn't try to outsmart the merch people when the grifters when it comes to that. Super sticker from Wes. Thank you for a $5 super sticker, and appreciate that. Big shout out to you. And Nicholas says a more Winston Churchill attitude from Gavin Newsom. Does that mean? I'm not sure what you mean by that. You'll have to give me some kind of context. No, I'm sorry, I don't know, but I like it. I like a Winston Churchill reference. I just don't know quite where it fits in right now. Lee Kopp says Carter family invited Melania to Rosalind's funeral.
Yeah.
She can wear one of those jackets that says nothing really matters.
I think it says, I don't care, do you?
Oh, I don't care.
Yeah.
Nothing really matters. Yeah, I say that. I don't really care. I don't really care. It'll be good. Happy the show is back, Lee said. Eileen and I missed you all. Thank you. It's great to be back on live. And Champagne Wishes hits me where it hurts with the Spencer Christian conversation about Jimmy Carter. He met him on Good Morning America. As you know, it was between Spencer and myself for that job on Good Morning America. So I've always talked about the fact that Spencer has essentially stolen my life. And Champagne says, Mark, you almost had several encounters with the president, didn't you? Yeah, just as I almost had Good Morning America, I almost had several encounters with Carter. There you go. I think that's it for now. So what I'd love to do is take a quick break for news and commentary. Kim will do the news. I will comment if time and if necessary, and then we will continue. I will ask you, it costs you nothing, if you could smash that like button.
Smash it with your iron rod.
Like a boss. Hit the thumbs up. Again, it helps us in the YouTube universe. I don't really even understand how, but it does matter. So smash it hard.
Smash it with your iron rod.
Kim's news, please, says Gordon. I mean, I don't think you need to rub it in, like sounding like a little like you're getting sick of me, which honestly, I understand. So, all right, let's do some news from Kim, and then we continue. Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show. I'm Kim McAllister. This report is sponsored by CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. The nation, as mentioned on the Mark Thompson Show, is mourning the death of former President Jimmy Carter. The longest-lived former president in U.S. history passed away Sunday at the age of 100 in his home in Plains, Georgia. The former peanut farmer and Georgia governor became the 39th president of the United States between 1977 and 1981 after beating Republican President Gerald Ford in the 1976 election. Former Presidents Obama and Clinton are sharing their thoughts on the legacy of Carter. Obama said, "President Carter taught us all what it means to live a life of grace, dignity, justice, and service." He recalled how for decades, tourists would pack into the Baptist Church in Plains, Georgia, to listen to Carter teach Sunday school. Clinton said, guided by his faith, President Carter lived to serve others until the very end. President-elect Trump is endorsing House Speaker Mike Johnson to remain in his role. Trump announcing his support for Johnson, saying he will do the right thing in a post on Truth Social. Trump's endorsement coming amid GOP infighting over Johnson's future as the House is set to vote on a new speaker on Friday. And Donald Trump's attempt to overturn the verdict in his sexual abuse civil trial rejected. Trump found liable last year for sexually abusing E. Jean Carroll in New York City in a department store in the 90s for defaming her when he denied her story. Well, today, a Manhattan federal appeals court found Trump did not show how his rights were violated during the trial, nor did he prove that a new trial would be warranted. Separately, Trump was ordered to pay more than $83 million in defamation damages after he continued to deny Carroll's account. The president-elect is still appealing that verdict. The United States is sending a new $2.5 billion aid package to Ukraine. In announcing the move today, President Biden said the United States will continue to work relentlessly to strengthen Ukraine's position in its war with Russia for the remainder of his time in office. February will mark 3 years since Russia invaded Ukraine. 3 years. Who thought it would go on that long, right? Several storms, severe storms, slamming the South, claiming at least 4 lives. More than 30 tornadoes reported over the weekend in Arkansas, Georgia, Louisiana, Mississippi, North Carolina, and in Texas. And officials in Santa Cruz are warning residents about donation scams now tied to the recent wharf collapse. Officials say swindlers pretending to represent businesses on the Santa Cruz Municipal Wharf are soliciting donations following the collapse last week. Officials say such scams take advantage of people wanting to help the community, and they say residents should be very wary about donating money to people that can't show strong connections to the businesses there. And
I heard, just as an aside, that on the Santa Cruz Boardwalk thing, or on the Santa Cruz Pier, that they're actually taking a second and trying to figure out what they should do. Have you heard about this? They just building it back isn't something that they necessarily feel secure about from the standpoint of the pier's future because of the change in the waves, the planet changing the way it is from a climate standpoint. And of course, that's played out in wave motions and the ferocity of the waves. So they have actually, they're taking a pause here to figure out what the next strategy should include to try to account for that.
It makes sense. I have some connections to Santa Cruz. So I'm on this Facebook page called Take Back Santa Cruz, and there are a lot of people putting ideas forth about what a new wharf, a rebuilt wharf should look like. You know, what kind of things they might want on the wharf, how it should be different than the wharf that was there. So,
Sure.
Yeah, a lot of community input. Still can't believe that happened.
No, nor can
Crazy.
I. I mean, it was amazing. And I mean, we had a listener, viewer, who was telling us they were just there. The family was just there, like hours, maybe just an hour.
In a porta potty at the end of the wharf. collapsed. Right.
Yeah. Oh my
Crazy.
God.
An investigation is underway after two planes nearly collided on a runway at LAX. The Los Angeles Times reports a taxiing private jet nearly crossed into the path of a Delta plane that was close to taking off Friday afternoon. The private jet had just arrived from Spokane, Washington, and was carrying the Gonzaga men's basketball team in town to play UCLA on Saturday. The FAA says the private jet never crossed the runway edge line. But it looks like they're a little too close for comfort
Yeah,
there.
that's scary. Really
No,
scary.
thank you. Yeah. NVIDIA is increasing its focus on robotics in 2025. In the first half of the year, it will launch Jetson Thor, a new compact computer for humanoid robots. This is part of a long-term strategy as NVIDIA aims to support robot makers globally rather than compete with companies like Tesla. Look at those cute robots.
Yeah, they're cute until they take over the world.
Until they turn on you.
Yeah.
No. Yeah. The NVIDIA robot picture is cool, though. And that's kind of how I envisioned humanoid robots. Not some of the ones that we're seeing come out, but this is like the vision of the future, right?
Yeah, I'm unclear on how robots will help us. I think I certainly am clear on the AI associated with technological breakthroughs, but the robotics part of it, I think, is sort of very specific.
Well, I know what I want my robot to do.
What's
I don't need my robot to do my writing for me, but if my robot wants to clean up around the house, maybe fold the laundry, my robot's going to be a hardworking robot.
They
doing the dishes.
Yeah.
Yeah. OpenAI is laying out plans to transform into a public benefit corporation. The for-profit entity will be based in Delaware, of course, and the original nonprofit will retain a significant stake in the new company. The decision follows a recent $6.6 billion funding round that valued OpenAI at $157 billion.
Wow.
There is just one bowl game on the college football slate today. Iowa will take on number 19 Missouri in the Trans-Perfect Music City Bowl in Nashville. NBA superstar LeBron James is celebrating his 40th birthday today when the NBA's all-time leading scorer takes the floor for the Lakers-Cavaliers game Tuesday. He will become the 22nd player in league history to play into his 40s. In his 22nd season, James remains a top 25 scorer, averaging 23.5 points per game. So he's
I have
40.
trouble getting my luggage into the overhead rack, and this guy's still running the court with guys who are 19 years old, and he's winning championships. Amazing.
Lastly, the San Diego Zoo is taking part in the Tournament of Roses parade Wednesday morning in Pasadena. The zoo is honoring the return of the giant pandas to the San Diego Zoo for the first time since 2019. And Marco with the zoo says the float in the 136th annual Rose Parade is celebrating the first giant pandas to enter the United States in 21 years.
Wow.
Have you ever been to the Rose Parade?
Yes, I've hosted the coverage of the Rose Parade.
Oh.
And it's spectacular. First of all, as a weather guy, when I'm back in a galaxy far away at a time long, long ago, I had to cover the night before the Rose Parade. Many people come from out of state, and they set up in campers, and they set up in tents, or they just sleep out in sleeping bags in designated areas because they want to be the first ones to get the good spots for the Rose Parade, because it is spectacular, the parade route. So anyway, I feel like very connected to the Rose Parade, and then would go to do stories about how they built the floats and everything, because they use, as you know, just everything has to be a natural seed or flower, right? But when it actually happens, and I was there, and I'd watched it on TV for years, but it is spectacular. It is the colors are so vibrant, and the smells are so pungent, and there's just a wonderful quality to the whole thing. It really is something. And I'm not a big parade guy, but I was blown away by the Rose Parade. It really is something special.
Yeah. Connection to the Rose Parade to my family. My stepmother's grandfather worked for Caltrans and lived in Pasadena and was one of the people responsible for building the freeways there. And he was very involved in civics and local politics.
Wow.
And he used to get tickets to the parade and the game every year. And so one year I was his guest, and we went and we sat in the stands and watched the parade.
Oh my!
Yeah, it was really
God,
fun.
That's cool.
Really
Wow.
fun. And then went to see the football game. But yeah, it was really good. Really
And
good.
they have a thing where you can see the Rose Parade floats. They park them on a street. So if you don't actually see the parade, they park them on a street, and after the parade, you can go see them there. And I think it might even be through the following day. They have hours that you can visit. You can see the floats up close. Those floats, they spent $250,000 on. I mean, it's unbelievable. Those are not just, that ain't just a volunteer, slap together thing. There are businesses dedicated to building these floats because they're generally businesses, like Monsanto has a float and, really, no, it's that way, you know, and what is that, Big Pharma has like 3 floats. Lilly, the pharmaceutical company.
Eli
has a
Lilly,
float. Eli Lilly,
Yeah,
thank you. I was thinking of Claxo. What is it? Smith Claxo? Is that one of them? The big pharmaceutical companies? Anyway, I've been to 2 Rose Parades, says Sue-Ann, and toured the construction barns. Amazing.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, those construction barns are amazing. They really are. Yeah. It's a special event. So, yeah.
This report is sponsored by CoachellaValleyCoffee.com.
Before you do the Coachella, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, and I've just thrown you here. But
you go.
Tony, we put something up as a slide, and I thought we agreed that we're going to get rid of it, and I've already seen a comment. That's the only reason I noticed that it was up. It's the thing that says show news. It shouldn't say show news. It should just say news.
No one's given me that one yet.
Oh, I told somebody. I thought I told you. Okay, so
I don't.
There's not a regular news slide.
No.
There is one. It was sent to. Okay.
Maybe
All right.
I missed.
They do this to me all the time. I don't know what the hell they
only
do.
one I have
I
right
can't
now.
even get a simple. I need a slide change. I said weeks ago.
And I also want to know what happened to the pictures I was supposed to see this week.
And where are those pictures, Tony? So
I've
you're
been
telling me you
really
don't have
busy
this.
and
You don't have
stuff.
the.
I'm tired.
You don't have it. You don't. So you don't have the regular one that doesn't say show on.
No, not that I don't know. I do
Okay, I'll have that sent to you.
I blame you.
Yeah, maybe it's my fault somehow.
Kathy to Kit Kat says, I was at the Rose Bowl parade and all I could smell was the onions and tacos being cooked on the sidewalk by vendors. Disappointed in not smelling the flowers.
I know. I mean, I think that's not cool. Yeah. Mars says, yeah, Tony, come on. The show news is redundant.
Does Albert have the right image?
Must be, because I asked for it to go away. I spotted it right away, and I said, yeah, I don't understand why show news. And Courtney, who I adore, and she did this, completely on her own, she added the word show. And I said, I don't know why we added the word show. It's not,
I mean, it is the show news. It's,
No, it's not, because that would be news about the show.
Oh.
I think. That's
okay.
I don't know. I just don't, it's a gratuitous word. So, and gratuitous is a dang word. All right. So, anyway, can
Stop
you have
picking
a
on
stagehand? I'm sorry. Okay. Everybody's putting up stuff. Stop picking on Tony. Mark, can you have a stagehand serve Kim a second cup in that 70s kitchen and do a plug for Coachella Valley Coffee? Exactly. Michael, you're right. It feels like that's a set.
It's
that
actually
Kim
a
is
really
on.
nice kitchen. You guys can't see, but it's really it's very cool looking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I love it as a backdrop. Shanda says March 5th in D.C. for the 14th from Jessica Denson. Do you know what this is about, Kim?
No idea. Nope.
They'll be there on the 5th in D.C. for the 14th from Jessica Denson. Nobody?
No.
Really? Is Daddy going to have to look this up?
Yep.
Okay.
Daddy
While I look it up, why don't you
While you look that up, let me tell you a little bit about Coachella Valley Coffee. The Coachella Valley winter solstice tea was slipped into stockings in the McAllister house, and everyone loved them. They brought joy. The
that's
holiday
great
blend,
news.
I think you can still get the holiday blend coffee on the website, CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. So check it out. When you get to, if you find something you'd like at CoachellaValleyCoffee.com, you get to the end, make sure in the code box, you enter Mark T, MARKT, no spaces, and you'll get the exclusive 10% off from the Mark Thompson Show. CoachellaValleyCoffee.com, the best tea I've ever tasted, the best coffee Mark's ever tasted. Definitely worth your time to go check out the website. You'll be really happy when your box of coffee and tea arrives in the mail. CoachellaValleyCoffee.com.
Love it. That was well done. And Jessica Denson was a Trump staffer. She was a campaign staffer. And she signed an NDA. The Trump people make you sign NDAs no matter what you're doing there, okay? You could be a FedEx delivery person, you have to sign an NDA. So she sued to invalidate the NDA in a decision that apparently has come down in her favor, okay? So a sweeping victory for former Trump campaign staffers who signed that NDA. It was illegal. So what I think is it Shonda is saying, it's a women's march. There's a march.
Okay.
There's a march on January 5th for Jessica Denson, apparently. Maybe that's what we're saying here. So thank you. I think it's a march on January 5th to protest Trump's eligibility to be president per the 14th Amendment. I see. Okay.
Isn't that a day late and a dollar short? That was kind of litigated in the Arizona case, right?
Yeah.
And they decided to let the people decide, and the people decided. So
yeah, exactly. Sadly, I think the legal means are passed. But Jessica is a lawyer with a YouTube channel following. She's a former Midas Touch person. Oh, this is interesting. Now this is coming into clarity for me because she, I believe, will be on this show.
Really?
Isn't that wild? Yeah. I need to follow up with you, Kim, because we're way behind on people we need to book and lock in, and some things I'm doing and I'm not telling you about, which I need to be better about. So
are you keeping secrets again?
Yeah, we don't have regular meetings and stuff, which probably is not smart, but we've kind of done it ad hoc. But anyway, so I think she may be alongside us here before long. But that is the long and long of it when it comes to Jessica Denson. So good stuff.
Should I lock out? I'm Kim McAllister. This is The Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Which one of you is Mark Thompson?
Girl, you just woo.
Y'all can all go to hell, and I'm going back to Texas. The science is ridiculous.
I blame you.
You just don't get it, do you? You don't.
You cannot say you love your country.
Morning.
Where are my weed smokers at?
It's fantastic.
Your Honor, I'd like to ask for a recess.
I love it when you're angry. We're in better shape, but I don't think we're in wildly better shape.
They pay me a lot of money for having attitude.
This is a man with anger. This is a man that has resentment towards you.
There's always been in this country 30 to 35% idiots.
That's pure speculation.
That's not fake. That's real.
Have you ever been a member of the Chinese Communist Party?
Why are you yelling?
Yeah, baby. Yeah, this is the first day we're back live. It's great to be back live, and we'll be live all week except for New Year's Day, which means we'll be live with you tomorrow. And later in the week, special guests coming through. I wanted to note a question which I can answer. Michael D. says, Mark, when is that fabulous new guest host, Michael Shore, coming back to the MTS network? The answer is later this month. I think it's a week from Monday. Michael will be, maybe it is Monday. Well, no, it's a week from Monday, I think. Yeah. Anyway, I believe it's either Monday or a week from Monday.
Soon, very soon.
Very soon. And I actually think it's a week from Tuesday. But anyway, the deal is that Michael will be back, and we're excited to have him back. Tony, I hate flavored coffee, but we were given a Coachella chocolate cinnamon for Christmas. It's pretty dang good. Yeah. Blue Smark, you're right. There's I mentioned it before. They have a special blend with a little cinnamon thing, and oh man, it is so good. God. The no show on 1/1, planning a hangover. Well, we just felt like most people are likely not going to be, up for a show on 1/1. So you're all watching football and doing stuff. Love the music, says Jane. Oh yeah, love you back. I love that little sweeper too. Oh my God, someone get him a calendar. Exactly. I know what's going on, Kim. I turn to you for what's going on the show. Yeah, and. All right. Tony, do you have stories from the sky? I thought I would grace everyone with some stories from the sky.
We have clearance, Clarence.
Roger, Roger. What's our vector, Victor?
Enough is enough!
You had it. You had it, and then I don't know.
I'm seeing
they do this to me all the time. I don't know what the hell they do it for.
We have clearance, Clarence.
Roger, Roger. What's our vector, Victor?
Enough is enough! I have had it with these monkey-fighting snakes on this Monday to Friday plane! Everybody strap in!
Army veteran Wayne Hoey takes his sacks with him everywhere, and this month, when he sat on the tarmac for more than an hour in Atlanta, Hoey was struck with the idea of breaking out the sacks. He was returning from a family visit to Detroit, was on a Delta flight, and as his plane waited at the gate, delayed by a staffing issue, he noticed a few toddlers across the aisle were starting to fuss, so he broke out his sacks.
It's like in-plane entertainment.
The flight attendant got permission from the cockpit, and Hoey started his impromptu serenade. So he got clearance to do it. And he started playing requests, all these different Christmas songs as people were traveling around the Christmas holiday. He did Holly Jolly Christmas, Here Comes Santa, Silent Night. He has 4 children and 10 grandkids. And he also broke out what song? If you guessed Baby Shark, you have got it. That was one of the requests from one of the young kids. Meantime, it has been a period of stowaways while we were away. The woman who stowed away on a Delta flight to Paris is apprehended again. This time she was trying to get into Canada. She stowed away on a flight from New York to Paris. That was last month.
Hey, it worked the first time.
Svetlana Dali managed to cut off her ankle monitor on Sunday. She has an ankle monitor. And she was taken into custody while on board a Greyhound bus that was bound for Canada.
Oh, Lana.
She is now in FBI custody, expected to be turned over to U.S. Marshals in Buffalo, New York. The attorney for the lady declined comment. She was staying with a roommate, and the roommate reported her missing when he saw her ankle monitor on the floor.
That can't be good.
She's a U.S. permanent resident and Russian national. She was previously charged with one count of being a stowaway on an aircraft, and that was on a Paris-bound flight. She was released without paying bail, but had a long list of conditions, including not traveling outside a designated area. But, of course, that's her jam. I mean, that's like asking, it's crazy. How can you ask her not to do that?
It's like asking a bear to stay away from the honey. No can do.
Thank you. It's a singer's got to sing. A dancer's got to dance. And somebody who is a stowaway's got to stow away. So Dolly was arrested again. And she was, I guess, is dealing with...
Wait, is her name Dolly or Lana?
Well, her last name is Dolly.
Oh, okay.
I thought. Is that not right?
Lana Dolly, like Dalai Lama?
Svetlana Dali. So they call her
Got it.
Lana, and her
Got
last name is Dali. Would you like
Lana
to interrupt
Dolly.
me any further, Kim?
No,
Did you
no,
feel like
no. Just getting it
was like
straight.
that? All right.
I blame you.
Oh, you're right. I wasn't making it clear. You're absolutely right. And meanwhile, in stowaway land, the stories are rich. A stowaway is caught on a Delta flight, and this is a pretty big concern for airlines because of the safety issues with these stowaways. This is out of Seattle. Another major airline boarded by a stowaway. This is a, sorry, I
can't figure out for the life of me how these people get through the security line without an actual boarding pass.
Yeah, Kim is right. This is an
Crazy.
unticketed passenger. Okay, so they're so tough on us, you know. And she was discovered while the plane was still taxiing out for takeoff. The incident came less than a month after another stowaway boarded a Delta airplane Thanksgiving week. That unticketed passenger, again, strange to get away with this. That unticketed passenger was discovered while the plane was still taxiing out for takeoff to Honolulu. This incident came less than a month after yet, more of this stuff. We find all of these stowaways. They go through TSA security, and apparently she went through the evening before the flight, but wasn't holding a boarding pass. The next day, they say that she gained access to the loading bridge without a scanned ticket at the gate. Once she was discovered, they returned to the gate to remove the unticketed passenger. They don't really talk about how they discovered that she was a stowaway.
They probably do a head count, I would imagine, before they leave.
If it's a full flight, you might have a problem with, where she's sitting, right?
You have to show your boarding pass at security, and then you have to show it again to the gate agent as you get on the plane. So that's two bottlenecks, two lines that you have to present your items, your boarding pass and your driver's license or your ID. How did that happen? I just don't understand. Like, how are they lax on the rules, or is she just doing one of those things where you act with such confidence that you don't arouse suspicion? Like, what's happening?
No, you're right. I agree. It's not one of those things that you can easily decode. It should have been caught sooner.
I blame you.
All right, maybe it's my fault. A flight from San Jose to Maui diverted and forced to land at SFO because of a, did you guess stowaway? No, it's disruptive passenger this time.
Oh, Merry Christmas, everyone. Yeah. Happy New Year.
According to airline officials, Hawaii Airline, why would anybody be disruptive on a Hawaiian flight? You're going to like the magical place, Hawaii.
For Christmas even.
Yeah, from San Jose and bound for, is it Kahului, Maui?
Oh, Kahului. Uh-huh.
Kahului.
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 Sure.
Or is that not the way you say it? Kahului? Yeah?
Yeah, sure. Kahului. Kahului. Yeah.
I see. Okay.
I blame you.
Okay.
All right. Good. Close enough.
Okay. Kahului. That's not the way we say it. We need to do it again. All right.
They do this to me all the time. I don't know what the hell they do it for.
I like those drops today. I'm sorry. For those who are new, I'm sort of going, what is with these drops? Oh, my God, he keeps playing those drops. According to a Hawaiian Airlines spokesperson, the aircraft, an Airbus 321neo, was diverted less than 2 hours later because of a disruptive passenger. They're carrying 184 passengers and 6 crew at the time on their way to, what's it called again, Kim?
Kahului.
I call it Maui. The flight landed at SFO a couple hours later after takeoff. And
wait, that's not where they wanted to go.
No one was happy.
No. Aloha, you're in San Francisco.
How many unruly passenger incidents were reported in the last year of 2024 here? This last year, how many total unruly passenger incidents were reported? I ask you live in the chat, what would be the number of unruly passenger incidents in total for the year? Trevor says 11,780. I get it. Go ahead, show me some. 1,450 says Ms. Organic. 10,000 says Franco. Really? That's a 1,500 says Kathleen Bryant. How many unruly passenger incidents have there been in the last year on flights from America? 400 for Josh, 100 from Randy, 277 says Harold, Joy 333, 2,300 says Tammy. The actual retail price, the number according to the FAA is reporting that there were 1,900 unruly passenger incidents in the last,
That's a lot of angry people on the sky.
Well, and Tony's calling up more than 2,000 unruly passenger. You know, listen, Tony, don't call up a different number than the number that I have, Tony.
Thanks, Tony.
I mean, I just told you, I have the answer right here, 1,900. Actually, it says more than 1,900, so you're right. More than, and they're saying more than 2,000.
I like the 2021 stat there myself.
Yeah, look at 2021.
5,973? Wow.
Yeah, almost 6,000 unruly passenger incidents. But why was that? Anybody think back to 2021? Why
exactly.
Was it? It's the masks. I'm not wearing this mask. You can't tell me to wear a mask. Masks don't do anything. You're just part of the media ecosphere, whatever. So that's the story there.
That's crazy.
In this incident, though, they had to go back and land at SFO. No Hawaii for you today. And that is Stories from the Sky.
This has been Stories from the Sky. The captain has turned off the seatbelt sign, and you are now free to move about the cabin.
Wow. I also, Tony, I've got a little mini Law and Disorder. I'll give you a second to pull it together. We like to do stuff on this show that isn't pure politics, although this Law and Disorder, this item does overlap with politics. Some of the stuff that we do in Law and Disorder does, and some of it does not. But this does. This is Law and Disorder.
In the criminal justice system, the people,
pimps, addicts, thieves, bums, winos, girls who can't keep an address, and men who don't care,
are represented by two separate yet equally important groups.
A cop, a flatfoot, a bull, a dick, John Law, you're the fuzz, the heat, you're poison, you're trouble, you're bad news.
These are their stories.
Kristen Sinema, Arizona senator, accused of using campaign funds to splurge on travel expenses for trips to Europe, Japan, Aspen, and California wine country. Wow.
Hey, at least she's going to some great places. If you got, if you're going to travel, that's good.
Well, you don't want to spend your own money. I mean, why not spend the money that's there sent by people who were supporting your campaign? Those are campaign funds. The Democrat turned independent is now illegally using the money to pay for chartered domestic and international flights, hotels, personal meals, and catering. That sounds great to me. What a life. You never have to touch your wallet or purse. It's all being funded by those people who brought you back to office. These trips appear unrelated to any campaign or official business. CREW, which is Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington, it's a nonprofit. They do great work. They filed a complaint last week with the Federal Election Commission. They're urging the Federal Election Commission, I should say, to take this matter up to the Department of Justice. According to CREW, Sinema appears to have violated criminal law and election rules by using campaign funds for personal purposes. The case stands out even more, according to CREW, because she announced that she would not run for re-election in March, exactly 8 months before Election Day and before Sinema for Arizona dispersed over $100,000 for what appear to be personal travel expenses.
Uh-oh.
she received no contributions other than one unitemized dollar after dispersing these funds.
Does she have to pay that back?
Well, Crew is saying that the commission has to enforce these flagrant and serious violations of the law, but it has to be taken to the Justice Department to force it. According to campaign finance reports viewed by various journalistic entities, like the Arizona Republic, for example, Sinema, who's the first female senator from Arizona, billed about $216,000 for travel between July and September, and another $152,000 for security-related expenses on top of that. It's unclear why or when she went on her trips, only that they were costly. I guess when you're chartering planes to domestic and international destinations, it costs a few dollars. A reported jaunt to Boston, for example, led to at least 9 travel-related disbursements totaling $8,000. Those to vendors that weren't related to any fundraising or official business on the campaign. She spent $522.92 at Davio's Catering in Boston, $218 at Bocelli's in Medford, Massachusetts.
Oh, yeah, Bocelli's. Got to go.
$307 at Nash Bar and Stage in Boston.
Well,
$605 at Grill and Bar in Boston. And $3,600 at Davio's, $3,600 at Davio's Catering in Boston. Wow. I'm leaving stuff out. $2,000 at the Empire Restaurant and Lounge in Boston. She really let it fly in Boston. During July and early August of 2024, following the senator's trip to Boston, Sinema for Arizona made disbursements supporting travel and events in Sonoma, California, and Aspen. In July through September of 2024, Sinema for Arizona, as it was called, that's the campaign fund, made at least 16 travel-related disbursements in California and Colorado, totaling $15,000 in the late summer.
It's almost as if she was cashing out.
Yeah, she was draining the coffers. Kim is right. Some of Sinema's other trips and expenses, according to the Arizona, who looked into this in great detail, included attending the Paris Olympics in August. And she visited Tokyo and London. And in London, she reportedly spent $4,500 for lodging, a car service, and meetings with Thai and Indian meals that were catered from local restaurants. And train tickets alone reportedly cost $800 during that trip. Plus, she wasn't over. I mean, when you're in London, why not just jump over to Italy, everybody? Yeah.
She was having a gay old time.
She headed to Italy, spent over $3,000 in Italy. The rule of thumb is that any dollar your campaign spends has to be for the campaign. It can't just be for your own personal benefit, says Noah Bookbinder, who is the president of Crew. It's hard to see how any of this spending was for the benefit of the campaign, he says. Her term ends on January 3rd. She was investigated last year for her campaign spending after being accused in a similar complaint filed with the FEC, that's the Federal Election Commission, of course, by a political action committee called Change for Arizona 2024, known as the Replace Sinema Group. It's unclear what came of that ethics complaint. Political experts and Sinema supporters have said that these allegations have never been found to have merit. But it does track with a number of different complaints, this particular complaint. You can see Tony putting up from the New Republic, don't give an S. Kristen Sinema gives wildest exit interview ever. She doesn't really answer any of these questions about this money. It would be different if she were remaining in the Senate. But when it comes to campaign finance and you're not staying in the Senate, what are you doing with all that money? As Kim says, you're just spending it, sweetheart.
Just spending it and checking out. Yep.
That's Law and Disorder for today.
Tune in again next time for more Law and Disorder on The Mark Thompson Show.
All right, that's it. Let's roll. Hey, let's be careful out there.
Right on, everybody.
The Mark Thompson Show.
I again, we'll remind you just on the way out, sort of bookend it. We did a drill down on Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy along with Donald Trump on the visa question, which I think speaks to MAGA Nation. It's your cold slap in the face that this guy who you elected, and we told you on this show was a fraud, is a fraud. Now, you have a view of things. You don't want immigrants in this country here illegally, and you want those that are in the country, you want them expelled from the country. These are promises, in fact, probably the promise that this president has made. Now it turns out he's actually working to bring in more immigrants to take tech jobs that, at the request, it would seem, of Vivek and Elon Musk at minimum, and most of the other tech bros who he's now hanging with. So, again, birds of a feather, and they're flocking together, not just those guys, but also Bezos and Zuckerberg. Look at the people and the organizations that have donated money to his inauguration. Donald Trump's inauguration is a great way for his campaign, essentially, and his administration to feather his nest. Now, in this case, these aren't campaign dollars. They are inauguration dollars. So it's even easier to put them into these various entities that are controlled by Trump, and they become Trump controlled, and it becomes Trump money. He can do whatever he wants with it. So that's what's happening in terms of the money. And if you follow the money, which is important to do, that's what Anthony Davis was mentioning in the first hour, you end up with these being the concerns of the tech industry. Give us our skilled workers from India, typically, who we bring here for a song, and they work for us on the cheap. That's what we want, and that's what this HB1 visa situation is all about, lifting the cap on the number of H1B visa participants that can come to this country. So I encourage you, all you MAGA kids, this is who Trump is. He's an elitist. He's a big money guy. He's going to always go with the big money guys. Always, 100%. Never will he throw anything but a little bone to the little people. That's why the tax cuts are a big deal. They are coming. You will see. There will be more of this. I'll give you another example. When you talk about Social Security, when you talk about these programs that are designed to lift up those who need a lift here in this country, you're going to see Donald Trump. Now, they'll spin it in some way, like we're reorganizing Social Security, we're making it better, whatever it might be, but he may even go after that. The ways that they will attack these, quote, entitlement programs will astound you, but their effort is to privatize everything. This is their dream. They're in control of Washington, and they may try to do it. So I would...
Mark,
yeah.
didn't Trump sign a check and send it to me in the mail with his name on it? It said he's doing things for me, Mark. Come on.
That's the complete beauty of his propaganda machine. He's amazing that way. And he'll continue to propagandize. And of course, he has a lot of the media carrying his water. Fox News Channel and Joe Rogan and the industry of YouTubers who continue to, suck at the teat of Donald Trump, because that does represent a tremendous revenue stream to all of them. But, and by the way, Elon Musk backing Germany's far-right party, that happened over the holidays. And this is who Elon Musk is as well. So it's not just the money. It is also the far-right authoritarian nature of this administration and who inhabits it. So all of that still to come. Watch for it as things unfold. I think it's going to become excruciatingly obvious, as it already has become a bit on this H1B, what is it? H1B? Is it H?
Yeah, I think it's H1B, although
sorry.
Some people say HB1. Who knows?
I confuse it with
Foreign
the bird
worker
flu.
visa.
The bird flu is what is it?
H1N1.
Yeah, I confuse it. So they're not the same.
The Mark Thompson Show.
All right. So what do I have to do before we say goodbye, Kim? Do we have to acknowledge anyone?
There's one. Shonda.
Yeah, that's what
we
talking about. We
already did that one, yeah.
We did it. I think we did all of these. Good news for E. Jean Carroll winning. It was somebody said there. Jan said good news. E. Jean Carroll won again. Yeah, Kim had it, and that really is right. And on the pier in Santa Cruz, Randy says there were environmental roadblocks to even upgrading the pier a few years back, if I recall. Yeah, they've got their work cut out for them for sure. Can't get Jimmy Carter out of my head, remembering when he had solar, water, and heat installed on the White House roof. Then Reagan ripped it out. Carter was thinking too far ahead. No one got it. That's exactly right. He was remarkable that way. On environment, I think he really did get it. And what a brilliant guy. I mean, was a nuclear engineer, nuclear physicist, quite impressive. And Ramona says, I'm so happy I found you, Mark, since I live in Daly City. Yeah. We love our Daly City viewers, listeners in California. We will be here live tomorrow, the last day of 2024. You have your New Year's plans yet? I don't know. Kim will likely do something in that kitchen set that she has.
It's a party in the kitchen, absolutely.
A party in the kitchen, baby.
A little Coachella Valley coffee.
Oh, yeah.
Taste test going on here. It's good.
Spike that coffee and it'll be a party. Brand new. The other thing I'll tell you that'll happen tomorrow is David K. Johnston will be here, so that's very, very cool. Later in the week, Alex Michelson from The Issue Is will be here. Michael Shore will be back, and we will have a regular show on Friday. So there's a lot. The only day we won't be on this week is New Year's Day. The After Party Live going on right now. Hit the like button if you haven't yet. And now, Shadow, if you would.
I'm Shadow Stevens for The Mark Thompson Show. Bye-bye.
That's all the time we have, everyone. Thank you for being here.
All the time. Bye-bye.
Until tomorrow. Bye-bye.